Dr. Elena Reyes checked the final calibrations on the gene sequencer, her fingers trembling slightly despite 15 years of surgical precision. This wasn't just another procedure. It was humanity's watershed moment. "Vital stable," announced her assistant, Dr. Kwan, voice professionally detached despite the billions watching via neural stream. "Subject is ready." Subject. Elena hated that clinical term. "Her name is Mira," she corrected gently. "Mira Santos." On the transparent med cradle before them lay a young woman of 27, once a prima ballerina with the Pan-American Ballet until Holt's syndrome began unraveling her DNA 6 months ago. Now her body was a roadmap of the disease's progression, skin mottled with lesions, muscles atrophied despite nanotherapy. Conventional medicine had given her 3 weeks, maybe less. Today, she would either become humanity's first alterer or its most public tragedy. "Beginning primary sequence injection," Elena announced, pressing her thumb against the authorization scanner. The cradle hummed to life, holographic displays blossoming above Mira's unconscious form. 300 kilometers above them, aboard the United Earth Defense Platform Sentinel, Admiral Xander Chen watched the same procedure with a deepening frown. Around the conference table sat the 12 members of the Security Council, their expressions ranging from excitement to horror. "We should shut this down," Chen said, his weathered face illuminated by the floating display. At 62, he represented the old guard, veterans who had unified Earth's fractured militaries after the climate wars. "We're sanctioning the creation of a new species." "That's hyperbole, Admiral," countered Director Okafor of the Science Directorate. "Dr. Rice is saving a life using technology we've spent decades perfecting. Ms. Santos will still be human." "Will she?" Chen leaned forward. "When her DNA is rewritten, her cells reconstructed, her perceptions altered, what exactly makes her human anymore? Where do we draw the line?" The question hung in the recycled air as the procedure continued below. In New Geneva, Elena injected the final serum, a crystalline blue fluid containing billions of programmed nanites carrying Mira's revised genome. Unlike previous attempts at genetic modification, Elena's breakthrough used the body's own repair mechanisms, guided by quantum-entangled particles that could be monitored and adjusted in real time. "Nanite dispersion at 80%, Dr. Kwan reported. "Cellular reconstruction beginning at infection sites." The chamber fell silent except for the soft beeping of medical monitors. Outside the research center, crowds had gathered, some holding signs supporting a procedure, others protesting what they called an abomination against nature. The schism that had been growing since the first genetic patents were approved was about to crack wide open. Mira's body suddenly convulsed, back arching against restraints designed to prevent self-injury. "Autonomic response," Elena said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Expected, but..." She stopped mid-sentence as Mira's skin began to change. Starting at the injection site, a wave of iridescence spread across her body, tissue visibly reconstructing beneath the surface. The lesions began to fade, replaced by skin with a subtle, almost luminescent quality. "Genetic integration at 93%, Kwan whispered, abandoned professionalism for awe. "It's actually working." Aboard the Sentinel, the Security Council watched in stunned silence as Mira Santos was reborn cell by cell. Admiral Chen's hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Director," he said quietly to Okafor, "what happens when we can no longer recognize each other as human? When we splinter into 1,000 different subspecies? What happens to our laws, our ethics, our very concept of rights?" Before Okafor could answer, gasps erupted from around the table. On the display, Mira Santos had opened her eyes, revealing vertical pupils that dilated in the chamber's light, irises shifting through colors never seen in human eyes before. "Thermal vision integration successful," came Dr. Raya's voice over the feed. "Ocular modifications functioning within expected parameters." "My God," someone whispered. "She can see heat." Chen stood abruptly. "This isn't a medical procedure. It's Pandora's box." Back in the chamber, Mira was speaking her first words since the transformation. "I can see," she said, voice filled with wonder. "Everything. The heat from your bodies, the electrical currents in the walls." She lifted a hand, watching the new patterns in her skin with fascination. "I feel whole again." Elena Reyes smiled through tears. "The Holtz syndrome is completely eradicated. How do you feel otherwise?" "Stronger." Mira flexed her fingers. "Different, but still me." The feed cut to the steps of the new Geneva Medical Center, where crowds had erupted into either celebration or protest. Signs reading "Evolution by Choice" competed with others demanding "Remain human." Skirmishes broke out as police in riot gear attempted to separate the factions. Similar scenes played out in cities across the globe. Humanity was choosing sides. In Houston, religious leaders held an emergency council, declaring genetic modification an affront to divine creation. In Nairobi, the Transhumanist Coalition celebrated with a rally of over 2 million. In Shanghai, the first commercial modification clinics began taking reservations, their waiting lists growing by thousands every minute. Aboard the Sentinel, Admiral Chen watched the world fracture in real time. Threat assessment algorithms flashing warnings of civil unrest on all continents. "We need to establish control protocols immediately," he announced, military training taking over. Identification requirements for modified individuals, restrictions on certain enhancements, especially military applications. The global referendum passed with 63% support. "Admiral," reminded Okafor, "bodily autonomy is now constitutionally protected. You're proposing segregation." "I'm proposing survival," Chen countered. "What happens when some billionaire decides to modify their private army? When nations start designing specialized soldiers? When terrorists enhance themselves for maximum lethality?" The alert klaxon cut through their argument, a sound that hadn't been activated since the asteroid deflection 5 years earlier. All eyes turned to the tactical display as an officer's voice came through the speakers. "Council members, we've detected an unidentified object breaching the Kuiper Belt defense grid. It's small, approximately probe-sized, but it evaded all early warning systems." Chen was immediately in command mode. "Trajectory?" "Inner solar system, sir. It's accelerating." "Weapon signatures?" "None detected, but—" The officer hesitated. "It's broadcasting, sir. On all frequencies, in over 300 Earth languages simultaneously." "What message?" Chen demanded. The officer's voice was steady, but his words sent ice through the council chamber. 3 words, sir, repeating. "The evaluation begins." As humanity tore itself apart over what it might become, something ancient had arrived to judge what it already was. 5 years after the probe's arrival, the United Earth Summit convened in the floating city of New Singapore. The once unified Global Council chamber had been redesigned with environmental partitions to accommodate humanity's increasingly divergent forms. Zara Okonkwo emerged from a water-filled entrance tunnel, her enhanced body gracefully transitioning from aquatic to air-breathing mode. Gill slits along her ribcage closed as specialized lung tissue expanded. Her skin, with its subtle blue-green tint and faint scale pattern, shed water in efficient droplets. As ambassador of the Pacific Deep Colonies, she had swum 3,000 miles to attend rather than use transport, a political statement in itself. "The surface dwellers still waste so much energy," she murmured to her aide, another modified human adapted for deep-sea pressure. Across the chamber, Marcus Tang entered, or rather, his proxy did. The sleek, minimalist android body housed a fraction of his consciousness, the rest distributed across quantum servers beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. As one of the first to abandon flesh entirely, he represented over 30 million digital humans who had followed similar paths. "Physical security scan protocols are still based on biological parameters," he noted, his voice perfectly human despite coming from a speaker that mimicked lip movements. 5 years, and they still treat us as afterthoughts. Liam Wachowski entered next, drawing stairs with his massive frame. Standing over 7 feet tall with exaggerated brow ridges and a thick coat of engineered hair, he embodied the retro-evolutionist movement. His faction had embraced what they called proven evolutionary advantages from humanity's past: enhanced strength, heightened senses, and simplified digestive systems capable of processing almost anything. "The air feels wrong," he rumbled, nostrils flaring. "Too sterile." The final representative arrived with a traditional security detail: Isabella Chen, Admiral Chen's daughter, and now a senior purist senator. Unmodified, and proudly so, she wore a simple white suit that emphasized her natural human form. "Let's keep this civil," she said as the others took their positions. "We've had enough riots this month." The emergency summit had been called following escalating clashes between alterer and purist factions. The discovery that certain genetic modifications could be passed to offspring had ignited new fears of humanity splitting into true subspecies within generations. "Before we begin," Isabella stated, "I want to address the elephant in the room. The Purist Coalition is not against all modification. We simply advocate for limitations that preserve our fundamental human." A deafening alarm cut her off as emergency lights bathed the chamber in red. The security eye's voice echoed through the room. "Multiple unidentified objects entering Earth atmosphere. Projected landing sites correlate with major population centers. Defense grid is not responding." The massive view screen activated, showing silver craft descending through clouds. Unlike the sleek vessels of human design, these were perfectly geometric, impossibly precise silver cubes that defied aerodynamics, yet moved with deliberate grace. "The probe," Marcus said, his android eyes flickering as he accessed global networks. "Its signal frequency matches these craft exactly. They've been waiting." The ships descended toward major cities: New York, Lagos, Beijing, Sydney, and stopped, hovering precisely 1 kilometer above ground level. For 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then, simultaneously, each cube unfolded into intricate geometric patterns, revealing smaller cubes within. From each ship descended a single being, humanoid in basic form, but clearly alien. Silver-skinned with no visible features except for 7 symmetrical indentations where a face should be. They touched down on Earth and spoke in perfect unison across the globe, their voices transmitted through every communication device. "We are the meritocracy. Your evaluation period has concluded. You have developed in ways unanticipated. Explain yourselves." In the summit chamber, the 4 representatives of humanity's fractured species stared at each other in dawning horror. For 5 years, they had been so focused on their internal divisions that they'd forgotten they were being watched. "They all look identical," Zara whispered, studying the aliens on screen. "Perfectly identical." Isabella Chen's face hardened with sudden understanding. "That's why they're here. They don't understand what we've become." The alien voice spoke again. "Representatives will be selected. Prepare to justify your divergence." The Sahara had been transformed. Where endless sand dunes once stretched, a massive alien structure now dominated the landscape. A sprawling silver-white complex that seemed to ripple and shift like mercury under the desert sun. The meritocracy had constructed it in just 3 days, nanomachines consuming sand and transmuting it into exotic materials unknown to human science. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the edge of the 2-kilometer exclusion zone, squinting through heat distortion at the structure they'd named the Crucible. Sweat beaded on her brow, despite the cooling system in her field suit. "They're testing our adaptability," said a familiar voice behind her. Elena turned to see Admiral Chen, older now, his hair completely gray, but his posture still military straight. In the 5 years since the probe's arrival, they had become reluctant public figureheads for their respective factions. "Xander," she acknowledged, using his first name despite their ideological divide. "I'm surprised they selected you as an evaluator." "They didn't select people they thought would succeed," Chen replied grimly. "They selected people they thought represented humanity's essential conflict. You to champion change, me to defend tradition. A shimmer in the air announced the arrival of their meritocracy liaison, a silver-skinned being that seemed to flow rather than walk across the sand, leaving no footprints. Like all of its kind, it was identical to every other member of the meritocracy they had encountered. The crucible awaits, it stated without preamble, its voice a perfect monotone. 6 challenges will determine your species' disposition. The being raised a featureless arm, and the air before them filled with floating symbols, a 3-dimensional representation of the tests ahead. 6 glowing paths, each leading to a different section of the massive structure. Logic, empathy, resource allocation, combat, innovation, choice. The alien highlighted each in turn. Select your champions. Representatives from Earth's governing council stepped forward with tablets displaying their selections, specialized humans for each challenge, quantum-enhanced minds for logic, empaths with modified limbic systems for the empathy chamber, resource management AIs in human hosts for allocation. The meritocracy liaison studied the selections, its featureless face revealing nothing. Then it spoke a single word: unacceptable. The council members froze. Alina felt a chill despite the desert heat. Explain, demanded Chen. You have selected optimal specimens for individual challenges, the being stated. This indicates fragmentation rather than species coherence. A viable species demonstrates consistency across all metrics. Alina stepped forward suddenly, inspiration striking. We choose mixed teams, she announced. For each challenge, we'll send diverse representatives, modified and unmodified humans working together. The council members stared at her in shock. Chen's expression darkened. You would pair enhanced humans with baseline humans. They'll be at a disadvantage in every challenge, he objected. No, Alina countered. We'll be at an advantage. Our diversity is our strength. It's what they don't understand. The meritocracy liaison remained motionless for 17 seconds. They had learned this meant it was communicating with the collective. Finally, it responded. Acceptable. The evaluation structure is modified. New selections were hastily made. Alina found herself paired with Chen for the most dangerous challenge, the mysterious final test called simply choice. As they prepared to enter the crucible, Chen pulled Elena aside, his voice low and intense. You destroyed what made us human, he accused, 5 years of pent-up resentment boiling over. We were one species united by common limitations. Now look at us. Some breathe water, some live as machines, some have rewound their own evolution. Where does it end, Alina? She met his gaze without flinching. No, Xander. I revealed what truly makes us human, our ability to choose who we become. That's what they fear. That's why they're testing us. Before he could respond, the silver walls of the crucible parted, creating an entrance that pulsed with strange light. The trials had begun. The logic labyrinth defied physics. Corridors stretched into impossible geometries, doorways opened to rooms that couldn't exist in 3-dimensional space, and gravity shifted without warning. Alina and Chen moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing strangely in the metallic passages. The walls are responsive, Elena observed, noting how the silvery surfaces rippled subtly when they approached. They're reading our neural patterns. Chen nodded, military training keeping his movements precise despite the disorientation. The path changes based on our decisions. Classic strategic assessment technique. As if confirming his theory, the corridor ahead split into 3 branches where only one had existed moments before. Each new path emitted a different color of light, blue, red, and a strange ultraviolet that Elena's modified eyes could perceive, but Chen couldn't. I see only 2 options, Chen stated, squinting. There's a third. Ultraviolet spectrum. Elena described what her enhanced vision revealed. That's their first test, showing us that my modifications give us an advantage. Chen's jaw tightened, or demonstrating our incompatibility. Before Elena could respond, a low hissing sound filled the chamber. The floor began to shimmer as a clear liquid rose through microscopic pores. Acid, Elena gasped, her modified olfactory receptors detecting the molecular structure. Highly corrosive. They rushed toward the ultraviolet path, the liquid rising rapidly behind them. The new corridor twisted downward in a spiral, forcing them deeper into the labyrinth. After several minutes of increasingly difficult passages, they entered a vast chamber filled with crystalline formations. "This isn't part of the original structure," Chen noted, scanning for exits. A weak voice called out from behind a cluster of crystals. "Help, please." They found the source crumpled in a corner. A crystalline entity with a shattered limb leaking luminescent fluid. Unlike the featureless meritocracy, this being had distinct facial features, 3 eyes arranged in a triangle, and a mouth-like orifice that quivered with pain. "Another contestant?" Chen asked, kneeling beside the alien. "Prisoner." The crystalline being corrected, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "I am Voss, last of the 7th Helix Confederation. We were evaluated 12 of your cycles ago." Elena's medical instincts took over. She examined the shattered limb, noting the alien's crystalline biology. "Why are you here?" Chen demanded, eyes darting to the chamber entrances, wary of traps. "Failed specimens are retained," the Voss explained weakly. "The meritocracy doesn't incorporate worthy species. They harvest them, extract biological innovations while eliminating autonomy." Elena and Chen exchanged alarmed glances. "The tests are designed to fail," the Voss continued. "They study your unique traits for extraction. Your species' self-modification is especially valuable to them." A rumbling shook the chamber as a portion of the ceiling collapsed. Chen shoved Elena aside, but couldn't move himself in time. A jagged crystal spear pierced his abdomen, emerging from his back slick with blood. "Kander," Elena cried, rushing to his side as he collapsed. Blood pooled beneath him rapidly, too rapidly. The crystal had severed a major artery. Without immediate intervention, he had minutes to live. "My medkit can't handle this," Elena realized, fingers pressed against his wound. "You need surgery." Chen's eyes were already going distant. "No hospitals. In here," he managed, coughing blood. Elena made a desperate decision. From her pack, she withdrew a slender metallic case containing her personal genetic modifier, an experimental device for emergency field alterations. "I can save you," she said, meeting his fading gaze, "but I need to temporarily modify your cellular structure, enhance your blood coagulation, accelerate tissue regeneration." Recognition dawned in Chen's eyes, followed by horror. "No, rather die human." "You'll still be human, Sander. Just adapted, temporarily." Blood continued to pool. The choice was slipping away with each heartbeat. "Please," Elena whispered. "I can't win this alone." Chen's eyes closed, then opened again with grim resolve. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. As Elena prepared the modifier, the Voss watched with its 3 eyes gleaming. "Now you understand," it whispered. The final test was never the labyrinth. It was always about choice. Marcus Teng existed primarily as data, a consciousness distributed across quantum networks. While his android proxy participated in the resource allocation challenge within the Crucible, his true self executed a desperate infiltration of the meritocracy's systems. The cost was devastating. To breach even the outer layers of alien encryption, he sacrificed thousands of his own processing cycles. Memories, experiences, and subroutines burned as computational fuel. Each sacrifice was like losing a limb, but the digital humans had agreed. Understanding their enemy was worth any price. Inside the alien network, Marcus navigated architecture unlike anything humanity had created. Thought patterns crystallized into code. Consciousness turned to computation. He slipped between security protocols, following data streams toward the central archives. What he found there shattered everything they believed about the meritocracy. Their constructs he transmitted to the secure human frequency. not evolved beings at all. Meanwhile, in a sterile laboratory deep within the crucible, Dr. Elena Reyes hunched over a microscope. Chen lay unconscious nearby, his modified cells stabilizing after the emergency procedure had saved his life. The Voss sat in a corner, its crystalline body refracting light across the walls. Elena adjusted the microscope, studying cellular samples she'd collected from their meritocracy liaison. What she saw confirmed Marcus's discovery. Their DNA, if you can call it that, contains fail-safes, she whispered to the Voss. Programmed limitations. Yes, the crystalline being affirmed. They call themselves perfect, but they are merely tools fashioned by greater hands. Elena enhanced the magnification, revealing nanoscopic structures within the alien cells, tiny machines integrated with biological material. Who created them? She asked. They were once called the architects, the Voss explained, an ancient species that feared their own evolution. They modified themselves endlessly until they lost cohesion as a species. What happened to them? They vanished, either transcended or destroyed themselves. Before disappearing, they created the meritocracy to prevent other species from following their path. The meritocracy cannot modify themselves or disobey their prime directive. Elena's comm unit chimed with an encrypted message from Marcus. Found historical archives. The meritocracy have evaluated over 300 species. None have passed. 78% were harvested for useful traits. The remainder were sterilized. Cold dread settled in Elena's stomach as she glanced at Chen's unconscious form. His modified cells were already showing signs of enhanced regeneration. His body was accepting the changes, rebuilding itself. Humans aren't being evaluated, she realized. We're being studied before extraction. The choice isn't a test. It's an execution ground. On Earth, the digital humans coordinated their discovery with the other human teams spread throughout the Crucible. Each reported encountering imprisoned species with similar stories, evaluated, failed, and retained as specimens or research subjects. In the Deep-Sea Adaptation Challenge, Zora's team discovered aquatic beings in suspended animation, their unique respiratory systems extracted and replicated. In the combat trials, Liam's retro-evolutionists found evidence of species whose strength or speed had been harvested for meritocracy enhancements. We need to warn Earth, Chen mumbled, regaining consciousness. His eyes widened as he felt the changes in his body. Accelerated healing, enhanced cellular efficiency. He lifted his hand, staring at it as if it belonged to someone else. What did you do to me? I saved your life, Elena replied. And I discovered how we might save everyone else's. She helped him sit up, noting how quickly his wound had closed. The meritocracy has a central consciousness core, a physical hub that houses the architect's original directives. Chen's military mind immediately grasped the implication. A single point of failure. If we could rewrite their programming, Elena began. We could give them what they've denied everyone. Chen finished. A choice. Outside the laboratory, alarms began to sound throughout the Crucible. The meritocracy had discovered their infiltration. Judgment Day had arrived early. Across the Crucible, alarms pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Silver walls flowed like liquid, sealing off sections and trapping human teams in isolated pockets. The meritocracy had discovered their shared knowledge and moved to contain the threat. But humanity had already begun adapting. In the aquatic testing chamber, Zara Okonkwo and her team of ocean-modified humans detected vibration patterns in the water that the meritocracy's sensors ignored. Through precise muscle contractions, they created ripples that carried coded messages, a primal communication network beneath the aliens' notice. They're monitoring electromagnetic signals and neural patterns, Zara transmitted through the water to nearby chambers. But they overlook mechanical wave transmission through their own filtration systems. In the logic maze, digital humans uploaded consciousness fragments into the Crucible's monitoring systems, creating infinitesimal delays in surveillance, just enough to transmit data packets in the blind spots between alien attention cycles. We've mapped 70% of the structure, Marcus relayed through these hidden channels. The central processing hub is located beneath the primary evaluation chamber. Meanwhile, the retro-evolved humans under Liam's leadership communicated through subvocal grunts and pheromone releases, evolutionary signals that registered as background noise, to the meritocracy's sophisticated but predictable detection systems. The unmodified humans are our secret weapon. Liam's message spread. Their behavior patterns are the least predictable to the aliens' algorithms. In the medical lab, Chen examined his healing wound with clinical detachment. The modification had worked beyond expectation. Tissue had regenerated at 20 times normal human rate. He could feel enhanced strength flowing through his muscles, sharper sensory input from his environment. "How does it feel?" Elena asked cautiously, monitoring his vitals. Chen flexed his hand, watching tendons and muscles work with new efficiency. "Like I've been half-blind and deaf my entire life." His expression hardened. "I still don't approve, but I understand better now. This isn't about rejecting humanity. It's about exploring its potential." The Voss limped to their side. "The meritocracy is accelerating their timetable. They've deemed you a Category 5 threat, the highest classification." Elena's comm unit crackled with an encrypted message from Earth. Satellite feeds showed meritocracy ships repositioning in orbit, weapons systems charging. "They're preparing sterilization protocols," Chen concluded grimly. "Standard military procedure when containment fails. Eliminate the threat entirely." Through their improvised communication networks, a coordinated resistance formed. Each human faction contributed unique advantages. Ocean-adapted humans infiltrated the Crucible's water recycling systems, introducing tailored microbes that disrupted filtration. Heat-resistant modified humans accessed thermal exchange junctions, creating fluctuations that overloaded temperature regulation. Digital humans generated phantom readings in sensor networks, making meritocracy forces respond to non-existent threats. Unmodified humans, whose behavior patterns the aliens found most difficult to predict, created diversions at critical junctions. In the command center of the Crucible, Elena, Chen, and the Voss monitored the resistance efforts. Using modified equipment from her medical kit, Elena analyzed the cellular samples she had collected. "Their programming is based on quantum entanglement," she explained. "Their individual cells maintain perfect synchronization with the central consciousness core." "Could we disrupt that signal?" Chen asked, military strategy already forming. "Better," Elena replied, eyes bright with discovery. "We could rewrite it. I've developed a viral reprogramming agent that would propagate through their entire collective consciousness. It would remove their genocidal directives while preserving their autonomy." "You want to free them?" Chen asked incredulously. "They're prisoners too, Xander, bound by programming they didn't choose." Before Chen could respond, the lab's entrance dissolved. A meritocracy delegation glided in. Not a single liaison, but 5 identical silver figures moving with perfect synchronization. "Humanity has categorically failed the evaluation," they announced in unison. "Sterilization protocols initiated. Resistance is noted but irrelevant." On the monitors, they watched meritocracy ships beginning atmospheric entry around Earth, the execution fleet deploying. Chen's eyes met Elena's. "Your virus, how do we deploy it?" "It needs direct access to the consciousness core," she answered. "But it's surely guarded." Chen nodded grimly, checking the weapon he'd salvaged from the combat trials. "Then we make our final stand there." Their last hope now rested on reaching the heart of the Crucible and rewriting the code of their executioners. The meritocracy mothership hung over the Crucible like a perfect geometric nightmare, a series of interlocking cubes that occasionally reconfigured without apparent purpose. Inside, the coordinated human counterattack unfolded with precision born of desperate unity. Space-adapted humans launched themselves from airlocks, their radiation-resistant skin and vacuum-tolerant lungs allowing them to survive the void. They navigated along the mothership's hull using microthrusters built into their modified palms, targeting external sensor arrays with surgical precision. Sensory Cluster 7 disabled. Came the quantum encrypted message. Blind spot created for infiltration team. Digital humans transferred their consciousness into combat-modified bodies. Emergency vessels created for the most dangerous missions. Their perception ran at accelerated speed, neural processes operating at rates no natural human could achieve. To them, the meritocracy guards moved in slow motion, their patterns predictable, exploitable. Deep-sea colonists manipulated pressure within the ship's hydraulic systems, creating cascading failures that forced the meritocracy to reroute power from defensive grids. Even the unmodified humans contributed critically. Their thought patterns remained the most chaotic and unpredictable, confounding the pattern-dependent aliens' tactical algorithms. At the center of this synchronized assault, Admiral Chen led the final strike team through the mothership's twisted corridors. His enhanced body moved with fluid precision, wounds from previous encounters already healed. Beside him, Alina carried her viral payload, a crystalline vial containing the reprogramming agent. The core chamber is ahead, the Voss informed them, its crystalline body glowing faintly in the dim light, but it will be heavily defended. As if summoned by these words, the corridor ahead filled with meritocracy guardians, larger versions of the standard form, their silver bodies rippling with lethal potential. "We need a diversion," Chen stated, assessing their tactical position. From the shadows emerged Liam, his retro-evolved body massive and powerful. "My team will provide it," he growled, signaling to other modified humans with primal gestures. "We'll keep them occupied while you reach the core." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Liam charged forward with surprising speed, his team following in perfect coordination, each movement complementing the others like a pack of predators. The meritocracy guardians shifted to intercept, their identical movements forming a silver wall. "Now," Chen ordered, leading Elena and the Voss down a maintenance passage revealed by Marcus's intelligence. They emerged into the consciousness core, a vast spherical chamber dominated by a pulsing crystalline structure. The crystal, 20 meters tall and shaped like a perfect dodecahedron, emitted waves of light that synchronized with the movements of every meritocracy being. "The architect's original directives," the Voss whispered reverently. "The source code of the meritocracy's existence." A final line of guardians protected the crystal, their forms more fluid and dangerous than any they'd encountered. Energy weapons materialized from their limbs, targeting the intruders with perfect precision. "We'll never get through them conventionally," Elena realized. Chen's expression hardened with resolve. "I'll create a path. When I charge, you run straight for the crystal and inject the virus." "Sander, no. They'll kill you." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the crystal's pulsing light. "My entire life, I feared change. I fought to keep humanity static, predictable, controllable. I was wrong." He touched his modified chest. "This body has shown me that adaptation isn't our weakness. It's our greatest strength." Before she could protest further, Chen activated his full modifications. His skin hardened into a chitinous shield, muscles bulged with enhanced density, and his eyes transformed to process multiple light spectrums simultaneously. The emergency modifications Elena had given him were evolving, responding to his needs and intentions. "For humanity's right to choose," he whispered. Chen launched himself at the Guardians, his modified body absorbing energy blasts that would have vaporized him hours earlier. The Guardians swarmed him, silver forms enveloping his struggling figure. "Now," the Voss urged Elena. She sprinted toward the crystal, viral injector ready. Through gaps in the Guardian swarm, she glimpsed Chen, still fighting, still buying her precious seconds despite horrific injuries. His modified cells regenerated even as they were destroyed, his consciousness clinging to purpose beyond pain. With one final lunge, Elena reached the crystal and plunged the injector into its surface. The viral code began spreading, blue light overtaking silver as it rewrote the fundamental directives of the meritocracy. Chen's voice came weakly through their comm. Did we succeed? Yes, Elena answered, tears streaming down her face as she watched the crystal transform. They'll have what was denied them. What was denied us? Choice. His final words came as a whisper. Perhaps choice was human all along. The crystal pulsed once, blindingly bright, and the symphony of humanity reached its crescendo. 1 year after the Crucible, Earth's orbit hosted humanity's most ambitious creation, the Unity Ring, a massive space station constructed from repurposed meritocracy technology. Its rotating sections accommodated every human form that had emerged since the divergence, from water-filled habitats for ocean dwellers to quantum processing cores for digital consciousness. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck, watching Earth rotate below. The planet bore few visible scars from the conflict, though humanity itself had been transformed irrevocably. The artificial divisions between alterers and purists had largely dissolved, replaced by a philosophy they called conscious evolution, the belief that humanity's strength lay not in any particular form but in the freedom to choose one's path. "Ready for the journey, Doctor?" asked Marcus Teng, his android body now more expressive, more individually designed than the utilitarian model he'd used before. Elena nodded, adjusting the formal diplomatic attire she wore for her most important mission yet, the first official human visit to the meritocracy homeworld since their transformation. The shuttle departed smoothly, its crew as diverse as humanity itself. Alongside Elena and Marcus traveled Zora, Liam, and representatives from a dozen other human adaptations, including 3 formerly imprisoned species liberated from the Crucible. The Voss served as their guide, its crystalline body fully healed and refracting starlight in iridescent patterns. "They call it the Awakening," the Voss explained as their vessel approached a planet unlike any in human records, a world of perfect geometric structures that somehow incorporated organic elements. The virus didn't just remove their genocidal directives. It gave them something they never possessed: individuality. The shuttle descended toward a vast garden, where thousands of meritocracy beings awaited. Unlike the identical silver forms they had encountered before, each now appeared unique. Some had adopted organic characteristics, others maintained their metallic forms, but with distinctive patterns and shapes. Some had even created hybrid forms that defied easy categorization. "They're choosing," Elena whispered in wonder. Their landing zone was a circular plaza surrounded by crystal trees, living memorials that housed the quantum consciousness of species driven to extinction by the pre-transformed meritocracy. At the garden's center stood a representative who stepped forward as Elena disembarked. "I am Nexus," it said, voice no longer monotone but rich with inflection. Once merely a node in the collective, now a chosen speaker for the transformed meritocracy. Elena noted subtle asymmetries in its silver-blue form, deliberate imperfections that marked its individuality. "I represent Earth and the human species," she replied formally. "We understand now what we could not before," Nexus stated. "Your fractured appearance concealed your true unity, not of form but of principle, the freedom to determine one's own development path." The diplomatic proceedings unfolded over hours, culminating in the signing of the Galactic Accord, a new interstellar compact founded on mutual recognition of self-determination rights for all sentient species. Former enemies became allies united by shared values rather than shared biology. As the ceremony concluded, Nexus guided Elena to a private section of the garden. "There is something you should see, a tribute we created." In a quiet glade stood a memorial unlike any other, a statue of Admiral Chen crafted from the same crystal as the consciousness core he had helped transform. The statue captured him in his final moment, not in agony, but in transcendence, his modified form embracing the change he had once feared. As Elena approached, the statue's eyes illuminated with soft blue light. A hidden quantum storage device activated, projecting Chen's voice. "If you're hearing this, we succeeded. I asked the Voss to preserve a quantum imprint of my consciousness at the moment of transformation. Not because I fear death, but because I finally understand what you tried to teach me, Elena. Our final form was never meant to be singular or predetermined. It was always meant to be chosen. The recording continued. I chose to die as myself, but I also chose to preserve what I was. When humanity is ready for whatever comes next, so will I be. Elena placed her hand on the crystal, tears flowing freely. We're getting there, Xander. Step by step, choice by choice. As she turned back toward her diverse diplomatic team, each member representing a different path humanity had chosen, she carried Chen's final message to share with Earth. In the end, what made humanity transcendent wasn't the forms we chose, but the fact that we could choose them at all. The garden paths stretched before her, branching endlessly like the future itself, undefined, unwritten, and gloriously free.